It was a normal day. Me and my husband John were driving to the store to buy food for dinner. We were talking and laughing like we always did. John was telling me about his day at work. I was watching the road ahead. Then, out of nowhere, a big truck came speeding towards us. It was on the wrong side of the road. John tried to swerve out of the way, but it was too late. There was a loud crash and everything went black. The next thing I knew, I was floating above our car. I could see myself and John still inside. Our car was all smashed up. There were people running towards us, yelling for help. I felt confused. How could I be up here when I could see myself down there? Then I noticed something strange. There was a soft, glowing light all around me. It was the prettiest light I'd ever seen. It made me feel warm and safe. I looked at my hands and body. They were glowing too, like they were made of light. Suddenly I heard a familiar voice. "Sarah, is that you?" I turned around and saw John. He was glowing just like me. "John," I cried. "What's happening? Are we dead?" John looked scared and confused. I think we might be," he said. "But how? And where are we going?" As soon as he said that, I felt a gentle tug. It was like something was pulling us away from the crash scene. We started floating up, higher and higher. The earth got smaller and smaller below us. I felt scared at first, but then a feeling of peace came over me. I remembered something my grandma used to tell me when I was little. She said that when we die, angels come to take us to heaven. Was that what was happening now? As we floated up, I saw a bright light ahead of us. It was brighter than anything I'd ever seen, but it didn't hurt my eyes to look at it. The light seemed to be calling us. "John," I said, "I think we're supposed to go towards that light." John nodded. He looked less scared now. We held hands and floated towards the light together. As we got closer, I started to hear the most beautiful music. It was like 1,000 choirs singing all at once. The sound filled me with joy. I felt happier than I'd ever been in my whole life. Then I saw something that took my breath away. There were angels all around us. They were just like I'd imagined, tall and beautiful, with big white wings. They were smiling at us and reaching out their hands. One of the angels came up to us. Her face was kind and loving. "Welcome, Sarah and John," she said. Her voice sounded like music. "Are you ready to enter the kingdom of heaven?" I looked at John. He squeezed my hand and nodded. "Yes," I said to the angel. "We're ready." The angel smiled and led us towards a big golden gate. It was the prettiest thing I'd ever seen. As we got closer, I could see a city behind the gate. The buildings were made of gold and precious stones. They shone so bright it was almost hard to look at them. As we walked through the gate, I felt a wave of love wash over me. It was stronger than any love I'd ever felt on earth. I knew this was God's love. It filled me up completely, and I felt like I might burst with happiness. Inside the city, everything was even more beautiful than I could have imagined. The streets were made of pure gold, so clean and shiny that they looked like glass. There were trees with leaves of every color, and fruit that looked more delicious than anything I'd ever seen. I could hear music everywhere. It wasn't just coming from one place, but seemed to be all around us. It was like the whole city was singing. The music made me want to dance and laugh. As we walked, I saw groups of people. They all looked so happy and peaceful. Some were talking and laughing together. Others were singing or playing instruments. Everyone seemed to glow with the inner light, just like me and John. The angel led us to a beautiful garden. In the middle of the garden was a throne, and on the throne sat Jesus. He looked just like the pictures I'd seen in church, but so much more real and alive. His face was full of love and kindness. Jesus stood up and walked towards us. He hugged John first, then me. His hug felt like coming home after being away for a long time. "Welcome, my children," he said. His voice was deep and warm, full of love. "Sarah," Jesus said, looking at me, "you have been a faithful servant. Well done. But it is not yet your time to stay here. There is still work for you to do on earth." I felt confused and a little sad. I didn't want to leave this beautiful place. I didn't want to leave John, but I knew I had to obey. "Don't be sad, Sarah," Jesus said, reading my thoughts. "This is not goodbye forever. It's just for a little while. John will be here waiting for you, and I will be with you always, even when you go back." I turned to John. He looked sad too, but he was smiling. "It's okay, Sarah," he said. "I'll be waiting for you here. Go and do what you need to do." I hugged John tight. "I love you," I said. "I'll miss you so much." "I love you too," John said. "But don't be sad. We'll be together again someday, and I'll be watching over you from up here." Jesus put his hand on my shoulder. "Before you go back, Sarah, I want to show you something," he said. He led me to a beautiful river. The water was crystal clear and sparkled in the light. "Look into the water," Jesus said. When I did, I saw scenes from my life on earth, but I didn't just see what I had done. I felt how my actions had affected others. I saw how even small kindnesses had made big differences in people's lives. I also saw times when I had hurt others, and I felt their pain. "This is why you need to go back," Jesus said. "Your life touches so many others. You have more love to give, more people to help. And when you come back here for good, you'll bring others with you because of the love you showed them." I nodded, understanding now why I had to return. Jesus hugged me one more time. "Remember, Sarah," he said, "I am always with you, and one day you'll come home to stay." The angel who had greeted us came back. "It's time, Sarah," she said gently. "Are you ready to go back?" I nodded, feeling both sad and hopeful. The angel took my hand. Suddenly, we were speeding back down towards Earth. We went so fast that everything around us was just a blur of light. The next thing I knew, I was back in my body in the crashed car. I could hear sirens and people shouting. Someone was cutting open the car door. "We've got a pulse," I heard someone yell. "She's alive." I opened my eyes. A paramedic was leaning over me. "Can you hear me, ma'am?" he asked. "You've been in an accident. We're going to get you out of here." I tried to speak, but no words came out. I was so tired. My whole body hurt. But deep inside, I felt a sense of peace. I knew that John was safe and happy in heaven. And I knew that one day, I would see him again. The next few months were hard. I had to recover from my injuries and plan John's funeral. But even though I was sad, I wasn't afraid. I knew exactly where John was, and I knew he was happy. I started telling people about my experience. At first, just my family and close friends. Then I began speaking at churches and hospitals. I wrote a book about what I had seen. Some people didn't believe me, but many did. I saw how my story gave people hope. People who were sick or dying weren't as scared anymore after hearing about heaven. People who had lost loved ones felt comforted knowing their family members were in such a wonderful place. Now I'm old. But I'm not afraid of dying. I know what's waiting for me on the other side. I know that soon, I'll see that bright light again. I'll hear that beautiful music. And best of all, I'll see John and Jesus again. Until then, I'll keep sharing my story and giving people hope. Because now I know that death isn't the end. It's just the beginning of something wonderful.